in communicating effectively and also conveying meanings, it is essential to use certain keywords which are at the core of the message with a very specific meaning. For otherwise, we could use a word and take some kick out of it, but nothing very much will be conveyed. Now, if you take the word system change, for example, now if we are using it for mechanical object like a car or a plane or some machine, things like that, then it is very narrow and it's a matter of making different kind of mechanical arrangements. However, system change in terms of societies, social relationships is not used in the same way. In the human relationships, social relationships, a system, although we use the word system, is merely a large amount of human arrangements which either achieves certain beneficial ends or, on the other hand, could also achieve very harmful objectives. Today, what we are talking about in terms of system change in the Sri Lankan context is that many very harmful practices and ways of doing things have got established within our social relationships, and that these need to be changed if things are going to be better. This also implies that if this harmful state of affairs continues, things could become even worse. Thus, system change could be for better, but it also could be for the worst. What is happening at this moment is that things have changed and are changing for the worse. If we want this to be changed, then we must understand what are those harmful practices, harmful ways of doing things, harmful arrangements that we have brought about within society. If we don't identify these harmful ways of doing things, then we cannot achieve the changes that we are thinking about. In that context, it is not a waste of time to ask what is it that we think is most vital aspects of changes that should happen, which will make our life more peaceful, more conducive to better relationships, more capable of improving our conditions of life, and in short, which will improve our relationships for the better. To do this, clear identification must be made of things that need immediate change and perhaps intermediate change, and some others which may take a long time, and therefore it may be a long-term change. In my view, looking into the wrongs that we have done, particularly since the 1978 and even more specifically till from 1982 referendum, is that we have allowed violence to be a main means of ordering society within our country. The state have shifted its rules of use of violence. All civilized states develop certain rules of violence for normal times and also for even abnormal times. Certain abnormalities that may be adopted are themselves constrained and limited and subjected to change as soon as possible for return to something normal. In terms of system change, the issue that needs lots of discussion and understanding is the way we became a violent and a very cruel society which uses these methods in order to achieve almost every objective, and that has vitiated the possibility of civilized discourse in any of the areas of life, whether it be in parliament, in the security sector, or even in the systems of justice, the policing, prosecution and judicial systems, and every other system. Priority should be on how to bring about this change. In other words, that are being, just to use some examples, there are many examples that can be taken, but just to be selective, is this issue of the word Sri Lankanness. Does Sri Lankanness means just belonging to a territory and living within that territory, and therefore we are just one group of people? Or in modern organized world, does it mean sharing of certain deep concerns and values, and these being so important that we would even bind each other to sacrifice our lives or our times in order to preserve that way of life. What is the way of life that we do want to preserve or to foster? I do not think that at this moment there is an agreement on this. Is murder a part of a way of life that we want to foster? Is the massive room that is made available for crimes the way of life that we want to have together? Or is non-sharing of concerns even for the poorest and having a certain completely unfair terms in dealing with each other, is that a way of life that we want to have together? If we are opposed to this, unless we make a consensus expressing that opposition and showing what we really want, then we do not have a common idea of Sri Lankanness. And under those circumstances, all kinds of betrayals on the one hand, and on the other hand, people opting out of it is also no surprise. These are only two terms that I am just mentioned, because if we want to think seriously about a change, then I think attempt must be made to get our meanings clear.